All right, so you're done practicing. You've got a wood clarinet. Maybe you just got it, maybe you've had it for a long time, but you have taken the plunge. You've gone in for a professional or semi-professional clarinet that's made out of wood. There are some things that are a little bit different, maybe more intense, about how to take care of this instrument. And I want to show you the things that I do in order to help take the proper care of this beautiful instrument. I got my first wood clarinet too young, but I've got my mother to thank for that. Because she was very kind to me. I was very interested in playing the clarinet, and she got me a buffet R13. I was young. I won't even tell you when. But it was in the 80s, the 1980s. The gentleman that sold the clarinet to me, it was a brand new clarinet, and he ran a music store. His name was Kurt Posh, and he was the kind of the clarinet man around Anchorage, Alaska in the 80s. And he told me something when I got my first clarinet. He said, "This is a part of you now, and you got to take good care of it." And he showed me some things, and it's stuck with me for a long time. And there's a couple things that are important just in setting up this story. It was in Anchorage, Alaska. The reason I'm highlighting that is because it's cold and it's dry, and that creates some extra challenges. The environment in which we live and that we have our clarinet is really, really important to figure out what's the right way to take care of this wood. So after you're done practicing, I'll tell you the first thing that you should do. After you put your reed away and take really good care of it, swab out your clarinet. Now, I swab my clarinet through the bell. There's, surprisingly enough, two schools of thought on this. I use this one through the bell. The most important thing about swabbing, this has nothing to do with taking great care of your clarinet, is to make sure that this cord has no knot in it. If you look through your clarinet, maybe this end's better, you can see that there's a tube sticking up. That's the register tube. It goes right through there. And your swab can and will get stuck on it. Now, a lot of people say, maybe half the people say, you should pull your swab in through this end. I don't think it really makes so much difference. I happen to believe that it's less likely to get caught in that tube if it's straightened out all the way through. If it gets in your instrument a little bit knotted, it can get caught in that tube real easy. But, listen, either way is okay. The most important thing is that you swab. So I swab it all in one unit, not the mouthpiece. And then I take off each one of these pieces and I swab out the socket inside here to make sure it's completely dry. And then, for right now, I'm going to put it over here. I would be putting it in my case, but that's cumbersome here in the video. I wipe off the top of these tenons. And I wipe off in here. Take off the bell. I wipe it here. And I even wipe the inside of the bell part here. That's not usually very wet, but I do it anyway. That's the most important thing you can do. The main challenge in keeping our wood clarinet healthy and ready to play is making sure that the moisture's out of it when we put it in the case. Now, when we had a plastic clarinet, the reason we swab is mostly because it gets disgusting and it would be gross if we didn't. And it helps, the pads, but it's not going to cause any long-term damage to your clarinet. If you got a clarinet that's made out of plastic and you don't swab it, again, it is gross and you should swab, but it's not going to do anything to hurt your clarinet in the long run. Swab anyway. But with a wooden clarinet, we got to get that moisture out of there because the challenge we face with the wooden clarinet is the wood will expand and contract. Here's the real challenge. The secret challenge inside all of it is that the inside that gets hotter and wetter expands at a different rate than the outside of the clarinet that stays by and large dry and cooler. So that means the inside expands and the outside does not expand. And if your wood is dry in general, it can cause a crack. And what we want to try and avoid is our clarinet cracking. A lot of people will tell you, and it might be true, that if your clarinet is going to crack, there's nothing you can do. That might be true. However, I think we owe it to ourselves and to our clarinet to not let the wood become brittle in its dryness. So when we swab it out, we're taking that moisture out before we put it in the case. But when I'm talking about our clarinet being dry, it's sort of a more global, fundamental level of dryness. We're going to get to how to deal with that in just a second. A couple just basic ideas. If you live in a cold environment, let's say you live in Montana, you're living in Anchorage, Alaska, you're living in Antarctica, wherever you are. If you're in Sweden, I think it's cold there. Forgive me for being so American and not knowing for sure, but I think it's cold there. If it's cold outside and you've got your instrument and you're going to a rehearsal, you're going to a concert, you're doing whatever you're doing, let the instrument warm up to room temperature before you play it. Because if the outside of your instrument is very cold, and then you put a lot of warm air into it, the inside of your instrument is going to expand very fast compared to the outside of the instrument. And even if your clarinet is not brittle in its dryness, it's going to put a lot of pressure on that wood. And we don't want to do that. We want to take it easy with that. Because if your clarinet is on the edge of cracking, that wood wants to crack, that's going to do it. The other thing, and the reason why we swab, is that we want that moisture out of there if we're going back out in the cold. So we don't want water sitting in our instrument if we're going to walk out into 30-degree weather, because that's going to also put a lot of stress on our instrument. Okay, we got that out of the way. Cool. So, you play a clarinet. Cool. Swab it, dry it out, put it in the case. Now, the next topic we have to talk about when it comes to caring for your clarinet properly is humidifying that case in some way. The best way to think about this, for me anyway, is to consider the way cigar lovers treat their cigars. They've got a special box for their cigars, and they humidify that box to keep those cigars at the optimal humidity. I don't know much about smoking cigars, but I know these people do this. Now, our clarinet has the same challenges. We want to keep it at the optimal humidity. Now, there are cases. I believe there's one called a Lomax that has a hygrometer inside it. That's amazing. I think that I have never actually laid eyes on one of those cases. I would love to, because it sounds like it's a very thoughtfully designed case. However, what I do is I put Boveda humidity packs inside my case. And what these do is they put humidity inside the case or take it out to keep it regulated at a certain amount. The Boveda packs I use are 65% humidity. They last kind of a while, and then you take them out when they get hard. Whatever's in there gets hard. You take them out, you put new ones in. That's how I find to be the best way to maintain a general type of humidity in my case throughout the seasons. That way it's kind of just regulating itself. There are cigar humidifiers that you put water in. Those work nicely too. But we do need to do something in order to keep our instrument at the right humidity level. If it's not at the right humidity level and it gets dried out, there's a couple ways in which we can tell that that's happening. Most clarinets, well, I'm not even sure that's true anymore. A lot of clarinets do have this metal cap on the tenons. But if it doesn't, you can see it gets lighter. It gets like a white color if it gets very, very dry. And you can actually see, if you look on the inside of your clarinet and you put it up to a light, you can see if the bore is really, really dried out. We need to do something about that. Another way to tell if your clarinet is dry is, and this is something everybody should know just in general, if you take your barrel off and the rings spin around or fall off, your clarinet is way too dry. And let me tell you this, if your rings fall off, do not, you can put the ring back on and kind of have it stay there, but don't put your instrument together. It's very dangerous to put a clarinet together if the rings are loose, because this is what keeps these more delicate, thinner areas of wood from cracking. And it's really, really important that we keep our instrument from cracking, particularly just by putting it together. So we've got rings on the barrel. We've got a ring here at the top of the lower joint. And of course, we've got a ring on top of the barrel. But then also don't forget about this bell ring. This bell ring sometimes gets loose. You can put your clarinet together if the very bottom ring of the bell is loose, but that's going to give you an indicator that your clarinet's getting too dry, because that means the wood is shrinking a little bit. And if the wood is shrinking, that means watch out. Okay, so that's not good enough, right, Clarinet Ninja? No, so I'm not going to just tell you to panic. I'm going to tell you what to do with that panic. Let's use this panic to help ourselves. Now, I'm going to give you some advice that is going to sound a little bit weird. If you go to the store, the grocery store, and buy an orange and peel that orange, and not huge chunks of peel, but small enough that you can fit some of those pieces inside your case in places that they're not going to touch the clarinet. So we're going to take this orange peel, we're going to put it inside the clarinet case so that it's not touching the wood of the clarinet. We don't want it touching the wood of the clarinet, but we do want a fresh freshly peeled orange and put those peels inside the clarinet case. Not too many, maybe 3 or 4 pieces about that big, and put them inside your clarinet case. Close it up tight. Your clarinet will get humidified extraordinarily quickly. Now, let me warn you about this. This is a really dramatic intervention. If your clarinet has gotten that dry, you have not been playing it too frequently, probably, and you shouldn't play it until it gets a little bit more humidified. Because if we're playing a really, really dry clarinet, the challenge that I talked about earlier becomes even more of a challenge. If the clarinet's dry, then the inside expanding, the outside not expanding, pressure on the wood. Okay, so that's much easier to deal with once we've humidified it with these orange peels. If you want to do a dramatic intervention, and if you do this, I'm pointing at you right now, do it like you can put it in a Ziploc bag, right? If you find like those big sort of like giant Ziploc bags, put part of your clarinet in that Ziploc bag. Boom, orange peel next to it, zip it up. Don't leave it more than overnight, because that's too much. We don't want to overdo this. And I'm going to repeat that again. We don't want to overdo this. We can go too far with this. And listen to me now. We don't want to leave the orange peels in there for more than a day or two, because they do get moldy, and that gets super gross, and you can get mold on your pads. You can actually do a lot of damage with this idea. It goes help, 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 and then it goes over this cliff, and then you're doing bad stuff. So only a couple days in the case, only one day if you feel like you need to put it in a Ziploc bag. But that is dramatic intervention. Let's say, then this has happened to me. If I'm out on the road, as they say, or even if I'm just in a hotel for a couple nights doing a job out of town, hotel rooms can be very, very dry. I have turned on a hot shower and put my clarinet case in this, not in the shower, but in the bathroom. So the shower's going and my clarinet case is in the bathroom. I get it nice and foggy in the bathroom, leave my clarinet in there for 20 minutes in the case. Again, not outside of the case, because I don't want water on the outside of my instrument. I just want it to generally be in a humid environment, because a lot of times this is another indicator that your clarinet has gotten too dry. Like sometimes if you finger from C to B, these levers, or C sharp, or any of these levers, if they get a little bit tight and bindy and they don't come up at the same speed they normally do, that is another indicator that your clarinet has moved and the posts are in a different place, and it just needs to be gently invited back into the right place. Because you can certainly go to a technician and get that fixed. Maybe you should, or at least talk to them about what's going on. But if you're in a place where you got somewhere, you're staying in a hotel and it's dried out, and the next morning you wake up and you warm up on your clarinet and it's not moving, turn on the shower. That will get it taken care of. But again, these aren't things that you want to do. These aren't things that you should be looking to do. These are really, really, they're pretty dramatic interventions. And we should look not to do them. I mean, I'll be straight ahead and honest in that in New York City, in January and February, I occasionally will need to put orange peels into my clarinet case, particularly my bass clarinet case. But but it's when it's the driest part of the year and the steam heat is going in the apartment. And that makes the inside of the apartment really, really dry. So these environments we do need to pay a lot of attention to, because, New York City itself isn't particularly dry, but the inside of an apartment with steam heat is very dry. If you live in Arizona, all year is dry. If you're living in Alaska, the winters are dry. So you really have to kind of pay attention to the general humidity in your area and make these decisions. Listen to, look at, pay attention to what your clarinet's telling you, and make these choices. The other thing that we can do when we're packing up our clarinet, and I do this frequently, I'll take just this part, the upper joint. You can leave the barrel on or take it off, but the important thing is you finger a C, and you plug up the end with your finger and blow, and nothing's going to happen, right? Until you pokey out these keys. And if you have any water inside those keys, it ejects it. And it ejects it onto the pad. So maybe get a little cigarette paper and get that pad nice and dry. But getting the water out of the tone holes is really, really important. when you are drying your clarinet out after you swab. Then swab again. Do that again. Get all the water out. Get the cigarette paper in there. Dry the tone holes. It's going to really help. Most clarinets will crack, if they do crack, in this general area here, because there's lots of holes, lots of posts where the keys are. And that creates a lot of failure points in the wood to crack. And I'll tell you right now, this clarinet has cracked. I took very good care of it. And it was taken very good care of before I owned it, and it cracked. I'll show you where the pins are. This is a close-up picture, and you're going to see little darker spots on the instrument, and that's where the pin is. If your clarinet does crack, sometimes it can be hard to tell on your own, and if you've never seen a crack in a clarinet, it can look a lot like wood grain. Another tricky part of it is they will open and close. They'll open up while you're playing, and then you'll kind of squeak sometimes, and it'll feel weird. Your clarinet will have a weird resistance. You'll change reeds a lot of times. You'll try and figure it out, and then soon enough, you'll take it to a technician. Will say, "Oh, your clarinet's cracked," because they know what they look like, and they know how to look. They know where to look, all these things. And if it is cracked, first of all, don't freak out. The first time I had a clarinet crack, I freaked out. The second time it happened, I freaked out less, and now I don't freak out at all. You may then say, well, why are you telling me all this stuff if all your clarinets crack? Most of my clarinets go for a long time without cracking. This one, I think, was about 10 years old when it cracked. So these things sometimes are unavoidable, but it really is. These are an investment financially and emotionally. They're a part of our lives. They are a part of us. And so we should do everything we can to take the proper care of them. Now, if it does crack, and you can find that crack, mark it with a pencil. Here's why, because it might close up. And if it closes up, it's not gone. It's just closed. It will open up again. And your technician is going to want to know where it is in order to pin it in the appropriate fashion. That's important. And then also you can see if it's getting bigger. You can see a lot. So do mark it with a pencil real lightly. That pencil will come off. It's no big deal. And then find the best technician you can. The technician you can afford. It's just on the outside of your budget, maybe. Yeah, get that person. Because you want this pinned right. You want this done right. And so find someone you trust. Ask some people in your area where they would go. And if you have to send it away, send it away. Get it done right. This clarinet cracked about 4 years ago, and it's working great. Love it. Still great. No problem. So it is not the end of the world, and it will be okay. But it is important to do all these things to take care of it. I'm going to mention one last thing, which is the idea of using bore oil in your clarinet. Now, oil in our clarinet, I'm going to tell you everything I know about it. Again, this is like swabbing, only in that there are two positions. Oil your clarinet or do not oil your clarinet. Every manufacturer tells you not to do it. This may or may not surprise you. I do it. I do it. I know a repairman very well who I trust, I like. He says, don't do it yourself. Let me do it. You know, there's a lot of positions on this. I have read on the internet that people say it ruins the tone of a clarinet or it doesn't help. Here's the position I have. I'm not 100% that it helps, but I am pretty sure it doesn't hurt. It doesn't make the sound worse. That I do not believe. If you believe that yourself, you're entitled to that belief. I'm not going to agree with you. I'm also not going to show you myself how to do this. And I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to do that. Because there's already a great video. I'm going to link it in the description. This gentleman is hilarious. And he oils the crap out of this clarinet. You just got to see it. Now, I also want to say, when it comes to oiling, if you choose to oil your clarinet, there are commercial bore oils. Some people use a sweet almond oil. This gentleman, I think, makes his own. This video that I'm going to link down in the description, he uses his own. He makes his own bore oil. I'm not suggesting his bore oil because I don't know anything about it. I'm not suggesting to not use it or to use it. I don't know. But the way he oils the clarinet, the way he prepares the swab, the way he deals with it is really a great way to oil the instrument because we're just going to oil the inside of it. That's what I do. You don't want to get it on the pads. You don't want to get it on the corks. You don't want to get it anywhere but the inside of the clarinet. This requires a designated oil swab and some other things. Just watch this video. It's great. I would try and make it myself, but it's not going to be as good as the one that's down here. So if you decide to oil your clarinet, I think it's a good idea. I do it. Watch this video because he's going to teach you how to do it right. The way I do it, I've got a designated swab. The swab's in a Ziploc bag because this oil gets everywhere and it doesn't wash off. It needs to sink into wood, not into our fingers. I have a special bore oiling shirt because I don't want to get the oil on the clothes that I have. It's a whole production for me, which is also kind of embarrassing, and I'll talk about it, but I don't want to show it to you. But yeah, this guy's got it. So that's what I know about taking care of your clarinet. The primary thing you can do, really swab it out, keep your case humidified. Those are 100%, you got to do it. And with this whole weather thing, if your clarinet is cold to the touch, wait till it warms up to room temperature before you play it. Don't play outside. I forgot to mention that. Don't play outside. And then if it is cold outside, swab it out, dry it out, blow out the water out of those tone holes, put it back in the case completely dry, then go outside. Because we don't want these dramatic shifts in temperature, and having moisture in it while that happens makes it more dangerous. All right. Congratulations on your clarinet. You got a good one. Enjoy playing it. Treat it well. It'll treat you well. We'll see you next time.